to this live stream today. My name is David Hurdle, and talking again with Sal Crispo, my good friend and colleague. And today we're going to be talking about awakening to soul. So we have, through our own journeys and our own experiences, had our own sort of spiritual awakening that we have gone through. And now that we're sort of both on the other end of it, we can kind of look back and see how the process played out. And it kind of went into some definite stages. And so today we're just going to be talking about that process of awakening to your soul and, some how to navigate the pitfalls, because I'm sure both of us made our own mistakes and made things maybe a little bit more difficult than they necessarily had to be. So we're just going to share some of our wisdom and our lessons and talk about the process. And if anyone this helps anyone out there, then that is absolutely fantastic. So welcome, Sal.
Hey, thanks for the intro, Dave. I'm really looking forward to this. I think this is extremely important for anyone who is suffering for sure with mental health issues or just not happy with their life, and maybe they don't, know why, or they do know why, but they don't know how to move forward in their journey, wherever they're at with their, soul development, if you will, or I know your soul's already developed. It's more of your connection to your soul. So I like what Dave said. It's you're uh, basically it's like a journey to your soul or connecting to your soul more than awakening your soul. It's awakening that connection to your soul. So
Yeah.
I like how you reworded that. Makes more sense. Yeah. So, anyways, I mean, we put together some slides, and I think it'll be helpful to follow along. And yeah, Dave and I will just share our experiences with each of the stages, and I think that it'll just some people are visual learners, and having those slides are often helpful, especially when I do my coaching one-on-one. It really does help people when they can see the images and the supporting text as well. So we'll share that with you right now, Dave.
Yeah, let's jump right on into it.
Yeah. All right. So there we go. And yeah, so this is a soul awakening uh, or a journey to, again, a journey to the soul or connecting to the soul. And this is 5 stages of that journey. And, just a reminder, feel free to type comments and any questions you may have in the chat box at any time. Both of us will also be available after the presentation if you have any questions or just want to talk about some of the stages. And we're always around. So that's very very helpful to know. And then the first thing is, what is a soul awakening, and why is it important to awaken the soul? Connecting to your soul divinity, and that's what really we were leading to in terms of saying awakening the soul is more about just connecting to it, people becoming aware or conscious of their soul themselves. There's a lot of people who don't believe in the soul, or um, or maybe they do believe it, but they don't really grasp it or understand it or really have done any of the work to connect to it. So this is what this talk is all about. The soul, why is it important? The soul is the only true captain of your life. It knows what you authentically desire to create, express, and experience. Awakening your soul or connecting to your soul is the single best thing you can do to live life to the fullest. And really, you know, the soul is, what is connected to Great Spirit or God or the universe, whatever you feel more comfortable with calling the infinite intelligence that created everything around us. And, because you have that direct line of communication to that part, you basically have, um, you know, this, again, infinite intelligence and wisdom that you can draw upon, and it can make things clear for you, and it could shine its light onto your soul, which then you can which will help you see and know yourself and what you love, what you desire, what you really want to express and do in this world. And I feel that's why a lot of people suffer, is because they don't know themselves, and that leads to a lot of pain and suffering. So this is the importance of connecting to your divinity and your soul. Dave, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, the most fundamental illusion or delusion that we all suffer from, and we're all sort of trained to be from a very young age, is just that we believe that not we're disconnected from the rest of life. We believe that we are fundamentally separate from everyone else and everything else. And when you start to build that bridge of connection with your soul, your spirit, that connection and that starts to awaken within you the interconnectedness and the oneness. And when you start to live from this higher place, um, this higher perspective that is more integrative rather than causing separation and division, like you said, when you come from the separate self, or we'll call it the ego self, throughout this presentation, you create so much suffering for yourself. It's really unnecessary. Life can get pretty hard, and a lot of it can be self-created and self-inflicted, and unknowingly as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when you build that bridge of connection to your soul, you just live from a more harmonious place, a more fulfilling place. Life is still going to be hard, but you have a different perspective and experience on how to engage and deal with those hardships, rather than increasing your suffering. You're able to move through those challenging experiences and just to experience a greater level of love and kindness and compassion and connection and everything. So yeah, it's when I think about who I used to be when I was younger, before I went on the spiritual journey, and who I am now, I mean, there was a lot of crap that I had to go through, obviously, but yeah, 100% worth it once you come out the other side, for sure. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so I like everything you said there. Um, and yeah, everyone pretty much gets wrapped up in their identity, where it's the end all be all. So for sure, yeah, we're overly invested in the ego, and we'll talk about how you can still have individuality, create individuality, but it's coming from more of a divine place, and it's more playful. You just play around with it. You can create it as you want, but you know that it's just a temporary illusion. That's it's like you're here, you're along for a ride, and it's going to end, and you just you make peace with that, and that's part of the healing that we're going to get to. And that's what you learn when you do connect to the soul and to the immortal, which is the immortal part of ourselves, right?
Right.
And I think that's part of the problem when people get caught up. They get caught up in the in the ego, right? And this is when you become asleep at the wheel, um, which really means that if your soul is asleep or you're disconnected from it, that is, then your unconscious programming, your ego, takes over. When the unhealthy ego is steering the ship, chaos and suffering often ensues. The further the ego steers from the soul's desires, the darker life becomes. The ego needs the soul's divine wisdom, guidance, and leadership in order to be healthy. Yeah, so basically here it's saying that, you know, we're, when you're born, you're this basically, just clean slate. You're, being taught by everyone around you. You're being conditioned by your family, and a lot of that conditioning, a lot of that programming, although it may be good intentioned, is not always going to serve you for the better, right? So the problem with just allowing the programming to run your life is it's not always and usually not aligned with your soul. So a lot of times people will find themselves going down different paths in their lives that don't resonate with their soul, and it's just purely ego driven. It's either driven by something like uh, I don't know, fame, fortune, um, different things that the ego desires. It's pure like cold and calculative, where it could be a certain job, not because you enjoy doing it, or you have any passion or true love for it, but because people hold it in high regard. So you have a higher social status or something like that. When it's about inflating your identity, that's what the unhealthy ego usually it does. It just chases after those types of things at the expense of the soul, and the soul gets darker and darker, and the connection gets weaker and weaker, and in the end we suffer more and more. So this is why we need to awaken our connection to soul and have a great relationship with that, and with the self, the true self, and learn what we truly want, so we could start making the decisions to support those desires and experience what we truly want to experience, and that way we won't suffer anymore. You want to add anything to that, Dave?
Nope.
Sorry, I missed that.
Nope, that's good. Well,
Okay. Um, the suppressed soul and wellness. You want to do this slide, Dave?
okay, so I mean, the suppressed and soul and wellness. So a dormant soul leads to inner darkness and negative states of being. By awakening to your soul, you gain access to abundance of heavenly treasures that lie within you. These treasures positively magnify your health and help you to maintain a high level of vitality. And so, like you said, when we're living from the programming of the mind or society's programming or parents or culture or religion or nationality, whatever the programming is, that programming can take you way off track. And so when you're connected when you're connected to your true essence, that true essence wants nothing but the best for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just got nothing but the highest level of love for you, and uh, more love than you can possibly imagine. And if you can accept that and trust in that and surrender to that and follow that, not just in your thoughts only, but also in your actions that you take, it takes you on the highest path that you could walk through life. um, and that is going to you're going to have a level of sort of fulfillment and wholeness and completion that you wouldn't otherwise experience when you're living from your own ego and from your mental programs. I know we'll probably get into this a bit later, but yeah, there's a big difference between looking for something outside of you to fulfill you and then chasing the next experience to find that, or just being fulfilled and connected within and taking that with you from experience to experience to experience. It really gets rid of the whole chasing happiness and chasing love and chasing pleasure and avoiding pain and all of the mental programs that just bring us into more disconnect and more suffering as life goes on.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah. And if you look at the image here, you have a key in a treasure chest with the shape of a heart at the end of the key, and really, that's what you need to remember, that the real treasures, the real things that are always there, they're always, around. They're not around you. They're within you. And so I just wanted to um, basically accentuate what you said there, Dave, because uh, yeah, we're programmed. Our ego's programmed to find success and fulfillment. Yeah, definitely around us, and it's very easy to just get caught up in it and forget that what we feel, the best things that we feel, come from within. They spring up from within. They don't, attach themselves to us from something we attain outside of ourselves. It doesn't work that way. So
Yeah.
it's good to remember and remind yourself of that perspective. I'll go to the next one.
Yeah.
Unconscious. So stage one, unconscious living, the dormant soul, or basically the dormant soul, or the dormant connection to the soul, right? And this is when you're completely ego driven. The mind is dominant, and the soul is a dormant passenger. So, uh, yeah, you're basically uh, in a state where it's purely analytical, logical. The programming again is making all the decisions for you. It's very reactive. It's not um, based on what you truly feel and what you truly desire from an authentic place, right? You could desire something because the ego told you, oh, that's what you need to feel good, and then you create that type of desire, but that's a little bit different, right? So when we say heart's desires, those are authentic, those are real. When you live from your heart, you make different types of decisions, right? But when you're ego driven, it's all automated. It's all based on inherited or learned programming. You're also, self-centered. Like your story is the greatest thing in your life. It's all about you, whether it's one of heroism or victimhood. And what that means is you could be extremely successful and be ego driven, or you can be someone who is like the opposite of successful, right? A complete, whatever, I'll put in quotations, whatever it means, but failure, or someone who's just victimizes themselves all the time, or they think they're just no good for several various reasons. And so the ego could appear to be overinflated or underinflated, but it's all about, at the end of the day, it's really just trying to strengthen the identity. Both, it
Yeah.
could be one direction or the other, right? They both strengthen the identity or make their story greater. So again, it all becomes about the identity. And so what happens is, I'm trying to give an example. It's like, instead of making a decision for a career, uh, because let's say you wanted to, you know, really be a teacher because you're passionate about educating others, but your parents or somebody in your life said, no, you have to become a doctor because they make more money, and they're regarded higher in society or whatnot. So they push you to become a doctor. So you think, oh well, I became a doctor, now I'm more successful, but you're really not happy because your true passion is educating. Then that again, that's an ego driven uh, person. And again, it doesn't mean that they're bad or they're good. This has nothing to do with good and evil. It just means that they're not living in a way that resonates with their own soul. So they suffer for. There's going to be some resentment there because you're not really following your heart. So it's very difficult to be happy when you make decisions that, even though from an ego standpoint or societal standpoint, they feel or seem better, they're not, because you're not more fulfilled from those decisions. You're actually left feeling sort of again resentful or unfulfilled and so forth and so on. You just don't feel good about it because it's like you've sold your soul to these other things instead of listening to your own heart. So you could have sold your soul for financial reasons, again for social status reasons, fame, um, whatever it may be, right? And just it no matter what you do, it's fulfilling the ego is never going to feel as good as fulfilling the soul, right? And I just want to add one more thing before I let you jump in, uh, Dave, is that in this stage you're so caught up in your story that you
Yeah.
don't even know that there's a soul, or or you just sort of, maybe it talks to you but you completely ignore it and you don't even know that you ignore it, like you're sort of very foggy minded and lost. Like I said, you're dominated by the programming, by these thoughts in your head, these beliefs that have been implanted, and again you don't even know that you are, right? So you're in an unconscious state. So the quote there, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, by Carl Jung. It Yeah, it's an extremely powerful quote, because until you shed a light on that part of you, um, that programming, and realize that it's hurting you, that it is not aligned with your soul, that it's disconnecting you from your divinity, from your true power, from your true self, and the true path for you to enjoy and get the most out of life, then yeah, you are going to call it fate. You're going to say, oh, my life is not good, or I feel this way, I feel depressed because whatever, right? These certain things unfolded the way they did, instead of, oh, it's because I haven't been following my heart. So you start blaming things on the outside around you, right? Like whatever it may be, society or work, or whatever it is, your family, your partner, whoever is not, making you happy. Because again, you think it comes from the outside in instead of from within. Um, and yeah, so the tip with dealing with this is to start watching your mind, watching the programming, and bringing it to light. And then you could do that through meditation, journaling, movement or exercise, and open prayer. Open prayer just meaning like having discussions with yourself, with your higher self, with God, whatever, with the universe, again, whatever you feel more comfortable saying, and just increase the awareness. Increase the awareness of the inner conflict, right? When you start listening to your thoughts, and you realize like, whoa, that thought, like, whoa, that thought, makes me feel bad, like, why, what's going on there, like, and then you start listening to your inner dialogue. You'll be very surprised to what you find. You're going to find a lot of things make you feel terrible, and then you have to say, whoa, okay, does that thought, that belief, where did it come from? Or anyways, if you can figure out where it came from, great. But the whole point is like, does it serve me? Should I really listen to this? And if no, then you need to learn to replace it with something that makes you feel good, and uh, yeah, makes you feel good about yourself, about your life, or whatever it is, or that situation. And that's again part of the process of getting out of this unconscious state, or this ego driven state, where you're completely disconnected from your soul. What would you like to add to that, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, ignorance is not bliss. The saying ignorance is bliss.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would say it's quite the opposite. When you're in ignorance, you're actually in quite a bit of pain, but or in fear. I'll just say fear, but maybe not necessarily aware of it. And that
Mhm.
fear is just going to be driving a lot of your decisions and your choices. And it's only going to get you more of the same. And that's one of the ways you can identify when you're sort of in that unconscious state is you're repeating things and you're only ever getting more of the same, and it's not fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to kind of pay attention to those things in your life, um, where there's just that's one of the ways I started to build awareness. I was just building awareness, a repetition of habits and patterns that weren't working for me, or providing fulfillment, or an expression of just my own inherent happiness and joy. Right? It was always, how many things in my life did I do because I thought I had to, or because I was insecure and I didn't know I was insecure, or my behaviors were driven by guilt, but at the time I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know it was guilt
Yeah.
driving behaviors, or my inner perfectionist. So in this stage, too much of your attention is focused outwards on the world around you, and not
Mm-hmm.
enough of your attention is focused on your inner world. And as Sal said, doing some meditation, some journaling, some self inquiry, learning to turn your awareness inwards, I think is one of the most important things. And at least for me, was probably one of the most important, what maybe the most important step that I took in terms of bringing myself through the process. Um, yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
That's you know right on, right? Because in this state, you don't even realize there is an inner world. Like
Yes.
you really, yeah, it's 100% outer world focused. So yeah, you that's why it's unconscious. So yeah, and the moment you like, oh wow, there's an inner world, I can work on it, and that can improve, you know, how I experience the outer world. Like that is the key, and that's what we're trying to get people to start focusing on in this stage, so they can get to the next stage. I'll move forward to the next stage, which is sort of connected to this stage. It can kind of happen at the same time, and they go back and forth, right? Um, so denial stage, stage two, pain and addiction. Um, yeah, so pain management, right? And pain management is, um, again, this is a stage where you do feel that inner pain. You are connected to that. The thing is, you're sort of don't want to face it. You're in denial, like I can get through it, or it's there because I just need to change a few things in my outer world, and then I'll be okay. Um, or you start doing things like that, make you feel good temporarily, like indulging in the negatives, which are alcohol, drugs, or empty sex, or anything that's addictive, like gambling and so forth and so on, and the vices, um, and chasing the positives to numb the pain. Basically, like you know, being addicted to your job, a career, or a certain goal that you want to reach, or financial status, or whatever it is that just again just take your mind off of the pain. So you just focus on chasing something, and you get caught up in pain and pleasure cycles, right? Where you do things to avoid the pain, which are what we just said above, the indulging in the negatives and chasing the positives. And you just, you end up in a lot of chaotic emotional storms. Like, so for instance, if you're feeling terrible, then you go out for, I would do this a lot, go and party, and a lot of drinking and so forth and so on, and you feel good temporarily, but then there were the repercussions the next day, where now you have the hangover. You also, I felt the full extent of my depression again, right? Because I went from being on a high now to back down to the low. So again, it's that cycle and chaotic emotional storms that you're going through, and it just it beats you up, right? I just always
Yeah.
felt beat up by it. It wasn't a good state to be in, and I knew that I couldn't be there forever. I couldn't be in this state forever. But I was like, I'm just not ready. I'm not ready to face it. I'm not ready to face it. So it is a denial stage. Like there were times where, because I was reading about health and I was into like the physical, the fitness and the nutrition and so forth and so on. Naturally, it led to other things. And I would come across like books on consciousness and awakening and all these different things, and I would start reading them. I'm like, yeah, this makes sense, but it started to scare the shit out of me, and I'm like, no, I'm not ready for this. And I'm like, I gotta close. There's no way I'm gonna stop drinking, stop partying, stop doing what I'm doing, because I felt like that was the only thing that was keeping me alive, right?
Right.
So yeah,
Which it might have been.
and it was, yeah, oh, absolutely, it was, right? So um anyway, so that's the it's not this is not a good stage to be in, but um you do have to go through it. You do have to go through this darkness to realize that following the ego is not the right path. It's never going to lead you to full fulfillment or true joy and peace and all these beautiful things that I experienced once I did connect to soul. And it just for me again, it was admitting and accepting. So the tip for this would be to admit and accept you have a problem, and that you need to start dealing with these problems positively, right? And that's only going to happen when you're ready, like I said. But this is where you should, if you're in this stage, you should be focused on that, like starting to say, hey, yeah, like this isn't good. If I'm addicted to this, if I'm whatever, working crazy long hours chasing something, trying to build something at the expense of everything else in my life and at the expense of um, the pain that I'm feeling within, right? Because I don't want to face it. Then you should start looking at, okay, maybe I have a problem, maybe I need to get some help. And you could look for different programs to get some help if you have addictions, like AA type programs, or therapy, or something like that. You want to add something to this, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of recognizing when you're in this phase. In the first phase, it was repetition of behaviors that aren't really indicative of your joy or your fulfillment, or you find them a little bit empty. Now it's repetition of behaviors that are causing you problems and bringing more self-destruction.
Yeah.
And increasing. So one of the ways to recognize this, at least in my own mind, is if I continued to do this and I magnified it in the long term, what are the consequences?
Oh,
Right. So that's the way to
yeah.
clarify whether the behavior that you're doing, whether you're working too much or in a toxic relationship or whatever, it's just like, if this continues over the long term, how bad is this going to get?
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of see in your own mind, if you're willing to face that. That's sort of how you can kind of identify when you're at this stage, because you're doing behaviors now that are just going to cause you greater and greater problems and suffering, and in the long run, it can end up in having health crisis issues, which I certainly did, for sure, not just mental but physical as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you kind of have to look at emotional pain, it's a message.
Mm-hmm.
It's life saying, start paying attention to your inner world. It's life saying, there's something here that you're repressing or not paying attention to, that is out of alignment with your soul, with your
Mm-hmm.
true nature, with your true essence, and you're not following that. And
Mm-hmm.
so that pain magnifies, and the fear magnifies, and it just keeps getting worse until you finally get in tune with the message that it's trying to, bring you. And so having that awareness and that self-awareness, as we talked about in the first stage, and just continuing to build that through meditation and learning to go a little deeper within, and There's no way when you're in that situation, the only way out is through,
Hmm.
if that makes any sense. There's
Yeah, it does, absolutely.
because if you're trying to medicate, you're trying to go around the issue and you're hoping it'll go away. And it
Yeah,
doesn't because it's in you and it follows you wherever you go.
you're still numbing it, right? You're still
Yeah.
using something that outside of yourself to numb it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the only way out is through, really. You have to go into that and feel that and dive into it and embrace it and and know that you're strong enough to come out the other end, because
Yeah.
there is a reason and there is a message there. And oftentimes, as you said in the slide there, there can be a lot of uncomfortable emotions
Hmm.
that do come up during this stage. And if you're not comfortable feeling your emotions, especially like I was, and I think males in particular, we're taught and bred from a young age to be strong and be stoic and not show any feeling.
Hmm.
um, that becomes maybe a little bit more of a challenge. Not just men, but at least could be
Yeah.
anybody.
Yes.
But I've witnessed that a lot in men in particular, and
Mhm.
learning to get comfortable with feeling those emotions, even if they are not comfortable, because they are trying to. Every emotion is representative of a belief system
Hmm.
that your mind holds, and your emotions kind of hold those belief systems or the glue that hold them together. And when you can kind of purge and release those emotions from your body and express, like when I was having like my panic attacks, that was my body's way of trying to like express and discharge the energy of all of the belief systems that were associated with that, and the lack of confidence and the
Hmm.
constant worry that had just built up and been stored in my body over time. um, you got to be able to feel that and get it out of your system, because those emotions do, if you don't release them and let them go, that becomes a big block in your journey forward. And at some point, they're going to come out anyways. uh,
Hmm.
but if you are a strong will and you are really suppressing them hard, that is just going to be to your detriment in the long run. So yeah, this stage is probably one of the two most uncomfortable stages. The next stage, unfortunately, also not so good,
No.
but it
Yeah.
does go up from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just got to be able to uh, feel what you are feeling and find ways to let it out of your system. And
Hmm.
however that is for you, it could be a creative outlet. I found meditation helped. I found movement. I found nature was just amazing for
Hmm.
keeping me sort of level and grounded and just releasing all of this, the baggage that I was holding on to. Exercise is amazing for that, for sure.
Hmm.
Moving the body,
Hmm.
breath work, journaling. They're all like fantastic ways of just trying to dissipate that excess, you know, suffering that your
Yeah.
body's holding on to. You just basically have to get it out. And
Yeah.
once you finally get that out of your system and dissipate it and express it and release it, there's you know there's sort of a natural process that happens. But maybe we'll just talk about that after. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's
No, I agree. It's easier to deal with the problems if you express the pain, right? Because you don't want to deal with all that emotion when you're going through the problems, right? So if you can
yeah.
release it positively somehow through exercise or, like you said, going for a walk in nature or whatnot, then you feel better. Then yeah. But I really like what you said there about you know the pain. The pain is yeah, like the the more pain you're feeling, the louder your soul's yelling at you, right? So it's like,
Basically.
yeah. So yeah, start listening because, uh, yeah, some people think like, if I'm, the reason why this is step two, people think, oh, if I'm in a stage where I'm like, it's pain and suffering, it's bad. It's like, no, it's good. You're closer to um, breaking through. You're closer to awakening to your soul than other people who may not feel pain, but they're
Yeah.
completely unconscious, right? They don't feel anything. It's like they're just almost like in the, you know, purely automated or robotic state. And I think if you're feeling pain and suffering, I think um, that's a good thing, because at least now you're feeling that inner world, to a certain extent, and where you're like not completely numb to it, or you're not, you're not conscious of it, right?
Right.
So I just want to give some people, some hope if you are in this stage. Um, and then, yeah, so that's good. I like all of that what you said there, Dave, and we'll move forward to the next slide. So yeah, breaking point, hitting rock bottom. Um, yeah, so eventually, through the chaotic emotional storms, like you because like I was saying, you get beat up, right? Um, you get tired, sick and tired of the ups and downs. You get sick and tired of, like for me, every time I indulged in the negatives, I knew what the repercussions would be. It would be a quick, um, a temporary feel good thing. Obviously, it was artificial, but it was, a way of getting it in the short term, right? I just had to drink, and then I'd feel good, or take something, I'd feel good, or whatever, go to party, it would, I'd feel better. But so that obviously there was, guilt and shame that came with that afterward, though, because I knew what I was doing was wrong, and my soul didn't like it, because I was hurting myself. I was hurting my body, my health, and I wasn't. It was just coping. I wasn't, like you said, I wasn't addressing the problem. Right. I was just, tiptoeing around it. And when I was chasing the positives, and I think you would think, okay, well, at least you're doing something positive, and I wasn't. It's a good thing. But the problem with chasing the positives was, once I did achieve a certain goal, once I did get there, because my ego was making the promises that, oh, when you achieve this goal, or get to this level, or whatever it is, whether it be a schooling thing, or career thing, or financial thing, or partner thing, once you get this person in your life, or this group of friends, or whatever, it could be so many different things, again, in the outside world around you, or you set the way you set things up in your outside world, that you're going to be happy. And then you finally do one of those things, or two of those things, or three of those things, which take time and effort. And you get there, and then it's like, whoa. You may feel like a little bit better, but you still feel that emptiness. You still feel that dark. I always felt that dark cloud around
Yep.
me. But I just feel like this dark. It's hard to explain, unless you're going through it, and you don't. It's really very, very difficult to understand. But if you're at this point in the pain management, in that stage two, where you're really feeling the pain, and it's getting super intense, you'll know what I mean. That's part of the depression, the dark night of the storm, which is the breaking point. Then like, whoa, no matter what I do, no matter whether it's positive or negative, that the ego tells me, um, and when it's not aligned with what the soul wants, then I'm gonna feel I'm gonna feel terrible. I'm
Yeah.
never gonna get to this promised land that the ego keeps promising me, this promised state of being,
Yeah.
because yeah, it doesn't exist. It's not gonna happen. And that could be scary too, right? It's scary. It's like, but then it's like, whoa, okay, I've made this realization. I got to this point. Now what do I do, right? And so for me, I knew that I could no longer continue living this way. I was too beat up. I was, always feeling, again, after achieving like something great, because I felt empty. I had that feeling of helplessness and hopelessness, like knowing I'll never feel good. I'm going to feel like this the rest of my life. And that's what I believed at the time. I knew I can't continue living. And fortunately for me, doing a lot of spiritual reading, I got to that point where I started facing it, and I started doing the reading, because as much as I wanted my life to end, I didn't want to go down without fighting, fortunately. And through reading, I came to the conclusion that I needed to attain conscious unity or this connection. So I did learn about it, and even though I didn't actually believe it, I went through it, and I did my own prayer. I did my own sincere repentance, and I surrendered. I asked God for help, and I said, listen, I said, I can't continue living this way, and if you don't help me, I'm going to let go and let you do this. But if I don't feel better, then I'm going to end my life. And I sort of got to that point. That's what helped me break through. But I tell Billy, I really did mean it with my whole heart. I was like, I'm done. I'm done getting beat up. I can't live like this anymore. And instead of killing myself, fortunately, I said to God, like, I'm giving up my life to you. I'm surrendering to you before I do something like that. And fortunately, it got me to the next stage. That's what got me through, like you said, through it rather than around it or any other way.
Yeah.
Because I also think the only way is through it, right? So anything you want to add to this, like your own experience, please share.
Yeah. Surrender can be a positive thing. We always think of surrender as a negative thing, especially if it comes to two sides that are fighting against each other. The side that surrenders loses.
Mm-hmm.
But you're surrendering to what only has your best interest at heart and your highest interest at heart.
Yes.
And part of that surrender, the tough part for me and the ego part was letting go of control.
Yes.
And control of what I thought my life should be like and what I thought I should be like and who I was and my identity and like all of that stuff. There's a measure of me trying to control things
Mm-hmm.
to the end and expectation that I want, but every time I try it, it never works. Or if it does work, it's only temporary. And temporary meaning like a second or two, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
It's like,
not worth all the time and effort you put into it. So
no.
yeah, for me, I mean, my I was at the same. So I was in my darkest stage I can remember, and this is the thing. This is when I needed the most help. This is when I was not willing to accept any help.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of my barriers as well, because I wouldn't let anybody in. I wouldn't let anybody see what I was going through because I
Mm-hmm.
was ashamed. I had to do it on my own. But yeah, so I mean, my relationship ended. Um, everything I thought I was about my identity around exercise and personal training, like for so long, I couldn't even exercise because I was just so exhausted all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my health was going down the toilet. I had digestive issues. I had heavy metal issues. I had taken antibiotics for like the dozenth time. uh, because I was getting all these like physical symptoms and viral infections, and I was just in a ball, like on the floor, literally in a ball, and I was like just in pain in my gut, in my belly, and I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, same. It's the same thing. It's just like I don't know what to do anymore. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know what to do. Like just and I don't want to. I don't know if in my mind at the time I would have called it surrender, but it was.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I look back in my mind, I was just giving up.
Yeah.
That was the judgment at the time, but it was definitely more a measure of surrender,
Mm-hmm.
where I was just like, I need help, I need higher guidance, and I need more than I can give myself or no. And that sort of was also the turning point. So very similar, but it required a lot of letting go, and a lot of surrender, and it's kind of like it's that saying, better the devil you know than you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have that moment of surrender, you are now walking and taking a step forward into the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
But everything I had done before that, I knew, and I knew where it got me, and I kept doing it over and over again, and it still got me only more pain and more suffering and more of the same.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you have to know that you're taking a step forward into the unknown and a
Yeah.
new direction in your life,
Yeah. A
and
leap
that
of faith. A leap of
yeah,
faith. Yeah.
and that can be scary,
Yeah.
but it's a step away from the pain and away from the suffering, and a step towards to step away from fear and a step towards love, and it's just one step. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so those are just some things that help kind of upon retrospect, I can see that were blocking me at this stage. I didn't want to let go of control. I
Yeah.
didn't want help from anyone. I was too ashamed. I didn't want to surrender because I thought surrendering was a bad thing. I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was giving up. Um, and yeah, you just gotta put your ego aside, like
Mm-hmm.
100%. And once you can get over that, the individual self, because this is what the journey is, right? The journey to the soul is the journey from the individual self and the separate self to
Yes.
the greater eternal infinite self, right?
And
So
this yeah, this is a spiritual battle. It's an inner world spiritual battle, and for me, when you it triggered something, memory that I had, and one of the things before I surrendered, because I told you I was beat up, and I was physically beat up. I had we'll get into. We said we were going to get into some supernatural stuff, right? in this talk. So I had a dream, and I've had dreams before that guide me, and I still do to this day. But nothing was quite like this dream. Um, I was going to I was doing a lot of different seminars at the time, and I was actually going to one of the Czech lifestyle coach seminars in San Diego. And I remember saying to myself, okay, when I get back from this, then I know I need to face it. I'll face this, right? And what happened that night before my flight to leave to go there, I had this dream, and because I knew I had to do this, but I just kept putting it off, right? All the spiritual books told me that I needed to repent and surrender and so forth. And I just never, I just kept putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. So I had this dream that uh, I was with my grandmother, and she called me over. I'll just shorten it up, and I walked over to her. But when I got to her, I realized that it wasn't her. It was another. It was another like person that I didn't know, almost like sort of like tricked me right into like deceived me, right, and pretending to be my grandmother. And she grabbed me by the neck, the back of the neck, and I just felt like her nails like go right into the back of my neck.
yeah,
And it was like a searing pain. I can't even explain how much pain I felt. And she said, "Stop running." Those were her words. That's
oh
all she
wow,
said. Stop running. And I woke up, and I had this incredible neck pain, which it made me not be able to work out anymore or do anything. I had a terrible trip. I had to lie down, listening to the lecture and all that when I was there. I could hardly sleep. I got no sleep practically, and anyways, it was the most intense pain I've ever felt. And it forced me, because I was using things like courses, like exercise, like all these things to, again, avoid the pain and avoid facing the issue. And by this dream pretty much paralyzing me, um,
right,
it forced me to, I'm like, okay, I'm in so much pain. Enough is enough. And then I read this passage from Rudolf Steiner, actually, and it was on again, it was on how to uh, basically go from perception to change your perception of separateness, like you were saying, going from ego consciousness to more of a Christ consciousness or spiritual consciousness. And he talked about this surrender aspect and so forth, and different meditations you can do. Anyways, it just really clicked, because I read so many varying passages, and it finally clicked. I'm like, okay, I realize what I need to do. And I remember walking up my steps, holding my neck, barely being able to move, finally getting to my bed and just laying there. I felt like, honestly, I was 120 years old. Like, that's how I felt. I was
yeah,
just so beaten. And that's when I said the prayer, like, I'm done. I'm done listening to this ego. I'm just done. I need to, I need your help. I need to surrender. And then after that, that's when things just went to, I basically the next stage will explain what happened.
Yep.
So I don't know. Do you want to go into that right
Yep.
away?
Yep.
Okay. So soul awakening metaphysical breakthrough is stage 4. Yeah. So this is basically a spiritual detox. This is what for me it lasted 3 days. And this is the thing. It's going to be different with everyone. And it's awakening of new higher senses. It's like it's a different plane of existence, really, when you attain, a conscious unity with your soul and your divinity, your divine self. Um, I really like the metaphor. It's used a lot of going from being a caterpillar to a butterfly. When you're completely ego driven, you're a caterpillar. You're just walking around, uh, not knowing that you're able to fly, right? And this spiritual detox is you coming out of the cocoon, and finally all that pain and struggling, uh, which is useful because it helps you to strengthen your wings, and that's why you need it. This is why I was trying to tell people, like, the pain management phase is necessary. You need to go through that pain to help you strengthen your wings, so that when you finally do break through, you can fly.
Yeah.
And that's important to know. I always say to me, like, the pain that I went through, my depression that started from my first memories at 5 years old all the way to 25. I mean, I gained a lot of strength in that time frame, right? That's a lot. Those are a lot of years, and because of that, I feel like I'm blessed because I have the strength now to fly freely, confidently, and help other people do the same, and find that path, and get through this process. And that's why, and you as well. And that's why I feel like we're both super coaches in that regard, that we've been through it, and can help others do the same, because we experienced all these stages. And anyway, so to get back to here, yeah, you're awakening to new higher senses. I mean, you could fly now. Think of a butterfly, right? Like, it's got a completely different feel to life than when it was in the caterpillar stage. And so your boundaries of reality are broken down, and the limits are now infinitely expanded. Some common experiences that you feel in this stage are, oneness perspective. um, Dave touched upon this before. You start to feel more of this interconnectedness. Everything around you, it is not separate. Yes, you're an individual. You can go one way, and another person can go the other way, but there's something there that's invisible that connects us, even though we can move around freely. So the separateness is just like a wonderful illusion that allows us to um, experience this life from a unique perspective. But there is this underlying connection to all things, which is great, and you really feel that when you finally break through. Um, and No time for me. Those, I call them 3 days, because it was really for me like 3 days of, chronologically speaking, that I went through this. But time ceased to exist. For me, I felt eternity. I know that's very difficult, because it almost sounds like an oxymoron, where it or antagonistic, where it's like, it was 3 days. Which one is it? Is it 3 days, or did you experience eternity? Well, I was like, I know time was going by, but I didn't feel time going by. I just felt like I was in eternity. So very difficult to explain that.
Yeah.
But it's more of an experience that you feel. And then there's synchronicity. With all things, you see. I'll let Dave touch on that one there. empathy, intuition, different energies that you feel around you. I had some very crazy experiences with just people around me, what I felt from them, because again, I felt a lot more connected, so I could feel what they were feeling. You obviously, uh, it's almost like a being more clairvoyant, or empathic, and it's just very difficult to describe because it's a feeling, right? It's like trying to describe to a caterpillar what it feels like to fly for the butterfly. So um, this is where people who have broken through, who have awakened to their soul, have a very difficult time explaining what the common experiences are, because the only way to know is to experience it yourself.
Yeah.
But this is the only thing we could say is this is what's on the other side of the pain of finally breaking through, right? Of reaching that breaking point and breaking through. I just remember going from being in this crazy depressed state. I went through this detox of all these transitions of feeling a huge state of sadness where I just cried for a solid day, and then the this well, actually, sorry, it started with anger. Anger turned into sadness, and that was a full day. And then from there, it went into the second day was fear. I went through a lot of fear. And then finally, by the third day, I started to experience pure, unconditional love, peace, joy, and things I never experienced in my life. Not to that degree, not even close. There's no even, I can't say I experienced that ever in my life. And so I finally healed. I knew. I was like, oh wow, like this, the depression is over. Like I know I'll never have it again. Like because it was like, oh, I finally found what I knew I needed to find my whole life. And I was blessed that even at 5, I knew something was wrong with life. I knew there was more to it than the way I was taught to live, right? And yeah, so those were the stages for me. And then there was a lot of, remember, this transmutation will likely be a rocky ride, which may include metaphysical or supernatural type phenomenon. I mean, it started with the dream. I forgot to mention with the dream that where the old lady stuck her nails or claws or whatever you want to call them in my neck, I still have white lines there. My hair turned white. I mean, I was only 25 years old, so it was just 2 white lines in the back of my neck where
Wow.
my hair is. They still have the marks there. They're literally like 2 claw marks, and so that's where it started. And then after that, when I was going in those 3 days, I had this communication with God, if you will, Great Spirit, and I was asking a lot of questions. And sometimes I would actually hear the answers through a voice, and then other times it was through the way it was communicated was through nature. So I would hear like uh, there was a huge storm, so the rain was falling, and I just remember, if I asked a question and it was yes, it would rain harder, and if it was no, it would slow down, or vice versa. I don't remember, but it was one or the other. And then I was asking all of these questions, and a lot of them were like, duality type questions, because that
Right.
that was the thing I struggled with. Like, how, if you're God, like how can you allow evil and all these, you
Yeah.
know, evil
Questions of the
things?
ages for sure.
Yeah, those types of questions. So a lot of those were being answered for me, and and it was amazing. And it was like, okay, I get it. So I was just being flooded then as well by all this wisdom, um, and it was just it felt great. Like it just it it was hard. Like it just started with a little bit like that, and but then it just flowed into me right on that third day where it was like peace and love and all these things. So once I detoxed, once the first 2 days of all the stuff I had to I guess, clear myself of all the anger, the
Yeah.
sadness, the fear, all the belief structures. There was a lot of I was able, because when the wisdom came in, it started to break down all of those belief structures that were hurting me,
Yep.
that were passed on. So it was incredible. It was incredible the way some force, some some again great infinite intelligence just took me over and just cleansed me. It started to cleanse my ego, cleanse the identity, and that was part of the healing. And again, this is supernatural. It's something metaphysical, purely metaphysical. Can I prove it? Can you prove it, Dave? It's like, no, we could just sort of say it happened to us, and we we're better off for it, and really the proof isn't just the way we live, I guess, right? So you can believe us by our authenticity and our I guess by our willingness to help others grow and develop themselves into enlightened, happy, loving beings, right?
Yep.
And yeah, and another thing, yeah, so to remember that it's a rocky ride. Um, so you may have these crazy things happen to you, and when Dave went through this, when I went through this, we weren't aware of any of this. So this stuff was freaking me out. It was
Yeah.
freaking the people around me out. I had like my mom, she was doing all this religious stuff, putting crosses on my bed, and because she was witnessing a lot of the supernatural stuff too. And so she thought like there was some, negative entities around, or I was possessed or whatever. And um, anyways, but it wasn't, right. Like there was a lot more that happened, but anyways, and because of that, I just want others to know that if you're in this stage, you're not going crazy, right?
Yeah.
Some people are institutionalized. They think they're going crazy, or there's something wrong with them, or you're just going through some mental psychosis. Like they make it into this mental thing, right? Where it's like again, which is ego driven, right? When you look at it, it's all something that we can explain. It's like, no, 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 no. This was not a mental thing. This was a spiritual
Yeah.
unfolding. That's why it's a spiritual detox, right? It's not a mental detox. This is a spiritual detox. And yeah, so please know that it can be rough, and you just don't know what the detox is going to look like. And that's the same for any detox, for physical detox. When you do this, like you can break out in acne, and you could have really bad bowel movements, that whatever. Like it's the same thing with spiritual detox. There's so many things that can happen, so just know that it can be rocky. So if possible, you should have someone who has gone through it before by your side, or someone who understands it and knows it, so they can be there by your side, supporting you, guiding you, making sure that you're okay through the process. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. So for my uh, own experiences, mine were extended over a longer period of time.
Mm.
Mine kind of gradually over a couple of years went up and up and up, and then peaked, and then kind of went down, and then they came up again. They're still there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, for me, the empathy really opened up. I remember I was in a session with a client, and I'm like, "How are you feeling today?" And I know, remember that moment, I was acutely aware of how I was feeling, which was pretty good. And then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, she just let out like this sigh, and all of a sudden, I felt her depression, because I know she had suffered from depression, and it
Yes.
lasted about 15 seconds, and then I was like, and then I snapped out of it, and I was like, hold
Yeah.
on a sec, that was not me. Like it was very clear that that was me feeling what she was feeling. So the empathy opened up a lot, and I
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of struggles trying to deal with that,
Yeah.
because you don't always know, even think that what you're feeling is maybe not even yours to begin with, right? It could be because you're opening up this greater connection to life, you're now starting to connect with other people's emotional bodies. The synchronicity, it just it's just wild how when you have to do something, you start off, and then the things that just need to be there appear for you, and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's my ego never would have accepted that previously, that that was even a possibility. And my mind previously was always, you have to have every step planned out and mapped out, and here's the goal at the end, and that's how you get there. But when you started to live in the flow and in synchronicity, you just start and go, and you see where it takes you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different type of living. Definitely the intuition. I had a lot of premonitions. Like there was just so much of that happening in my mind where I would think of things and they would just happen. But for me, the big thing was I started to actually leave my body.
Mm-hmm.
2010, when the Olympics were on, I remember really clearly in February. I woke up and I was floating above my body, looking down at my body, and I was
Yeah.
like, "What?" Like,
Yeah.
I was just, freaking out, and I floated out to the living room, and my wife was sitting there, and I could see her, and I could see the Olympics happening on TV, and it was just like when people have a near death experience, when they experience it in the hospital or something, and they look down at the room and they can see everything that's
Mm-hmm.
there. And that started for me, and that's when I really started to question my sanity,
Mm-hmm.
because for about 5 days a week, for the better part of 2 years, I was leaving my body and not here. And I met other beings, and I went to other planes of existence, and I went to other planets, and my higher self was there. I got taken to some classrooms and was taught things, and I was given some knowledge. And I guess the best way I can say is like a zip file, because it was
Mm-hmm.
always in language that I couldn't really understand, but it would sort of imprint on me. And so I had all these wild experiences, um, where I was learning things, and being given personal guidance by my higher self in the astral. And um, yeah, I just thought I was losing it. I thought I was losing it. And then
You
it
were, but in a good way, and you were
yeah,
losing a good part.
and then it's sort of, the peak of it ended in 2012, which I thought was really interesting, because remember 2012 was always a big thing in the spiritual community,
Mm-hmm.
about the like awakening process of humanity. And so while I was out of my body, I all of a sudden felt a surge of energy, and it was like a big column that rushed up through me, and then two sort of spiraling coils, one this way and this way, went around it, and then it just burst out of the top of my head, and the energy kind of showered down upon me.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't in my body when I experienced that. I was out of my body, and so I've that would be what I understand as a Kundalini awakening experience. From what I kind of, it got me on a tangent where I was reading about that kind of stuff and researching it, but that was kind of the peak. And my experience wasn't so much of oneness; it was more of ultimate stillness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just how I experienced. It was just that pure presence. There was no mind, there was no thought.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was, there was void, but it was just my presence, and that was it. And that was kind of how I experienced it. I didn't experience it for too long because my mind could not handle it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Very shortly after, my mind was like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
And tries to analyze and tries to diagnose and figure out and understand. And so it didn't last too long for me, and I kind
Mm-hmm.
of oscillated back and forth between the two. But yeah, so that was sort of the metaphysical stuff that was happening. And I was getting visitations by like globes of light when I was going on my camping trips and stuff, and my wife was seeing this with me. And it was just
Mm-hmm.
this phase where everything just opened up. My entire view of reality just shattered, and what I
Yeah.
thought was possible just shattered. And it's just a breaking down of further breaking down of the barriers of the individual self and the separate self.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just, I just look at it as a natural byproduct of the process of expansion and clearing.
Mm-hmm.
And once like you did, once you cleared your anger, you cleared your sadness. Once I cleared all the depression and the anxiety, all that dense energy within me, it opens up our senses to more than uh, our to the subtle world, I guess, because we live
Hmm.
in the gross physical world. So when you open your senses up to the subtle world, you just connect with the energy of life and learn to tap into that and read that. And so I think there's a couple things here that I just want to say is don't get too attached to that because that can be a trap.
Yes.
Try and do spiritually awaken and just specifically for those experiences
Yes.
can be a trap. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people that get into spirituality get into it because that's what they want to experience.
Yeah.
I
That's
didn't
yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't know that's what I was going to experience. It just happened as a byproduct. And I think that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
You become more loving, more pure,
Hmm.
more heart based, and that stuff will come to you. But if you're trying to force that to happen, that's ego
Yes.
hijacking your spirituality for its purposes,
Yeah,
right?
because you can't really live in that state. Like I remember being in that, when you're in that euphoric state,
Yeah.
you don't, there's no way you can function as a normal individual, right? You become too, remember when we did our chakra talk, right? You become too airy, right? You don't become grounded enough, right? You need to, it's about balance, right?
Yeah.
You're too much on the ethereal plane, right? And it's like, um, yeah, so it's not functional. And I don't, like, for me it's like, why would I want to get there? I experienced what I experienced for eternity. That sounds weird, but I did. It's like, well, okay, now I realize that this human experience is a unique experience, and I'm here to experience this. So but now I'm going to be experiencing it in a whole new light, where I'm going to really enjoy it. Like it was totally different, right? But because, yeah, like you, I looked into this. I was like, what happened to me? Like, what did I just go through? Did other people go through this? Um, and yeah, and then when I started to look at it, you start to see there are different uh, story. Like, I think a lot of the religious stories, like Jesus, right? Jesus story is about awakening, and it's a soul awakening type story. He achieved Christ consciousness, and yeah. So, anyways, I think there's a lot of stuff out there that is trying to describe this process, but they're having a really hard time because you're like, like I was saying with the butterfly, right? How does the butterfly go to the other caterpillars and start explaining what it's like to fly and what the feeling is like, and all that? They're all gonna like, if they don't know about this stage, they're
Yeah.
just gonna think, yeah, you're just crazy, buddy, whatever, right? Um, anyway, so that's the I guess that's the challenge uh, for when we talk about this, and it's not easy. Sometimes there could be a reluctance. I remember you and I discussed how we were a little bit reluctant to share these stories because people
Yeah.
may think you're crazy, or you've lost it, or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I think that's part of growing, and that's why it's important to say it's a rocky ride, and it may be metaphysical or supernatural. It's important to know that, like, hey, like, this spiritual stuff is different. It's a completely different realm than the physical world, and
Yeah.
be prepared, right? Be prepared. And yeah, there are, just like there are traps in the physical world, there are traps in the spiritual world. Yeah, your ego can attach to, whoa, I want to feel like that again, or whoa, I want to experience that again, or just so I could tell other people that I experienced it, and or I
Yeah.
can go there whenever I want, and look at me, and I'm a guru, and you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
and yeah. So by you and I sharing these stories, we're not trying to say, like, oh, look at us, like we can fly now and you can't. That's terrible. That's not what we want. We want other people to go through it too. We want other people to, who are suffering, especially, to awaken and live a better life, because it's going to be better for the future. It's going to be better for, this whole experience for everyone. Um, And yeah, that's it. But no, that's all great, man. This is all really, really good. I love talking about this stuff. Did you
Yeah.
want to move on from this slide to the next
Yeah,
one?
I'll just add another quick point or
Yeah,
two.
yeah.
So as we were saying, just don't get too attached to the phenomenon.
Mhm.
Um, Grounding is really important,
Yes.
uh, because, like you said, you can't function there, and it's
Hmm.
very easy to react. Once you experience that, it's very easy to come back and look how and judge how shitty reality is.
Yeah.
And you just want to be there all the time and not here. That's just another trap, and that's
Yes.
just still avoiding pain. That's still moving
Yes.
towards pleasure and avoiding pain, just put
Yes.
into spiritual. So grounding and being in your body is really important, and I think that's where
Yes.
exercise helped me a lot, moving and feeling my body, doing things physical, because you can really get in your head, you can really get lost in your imagination, you can really get caught up in fantasy. So things, just whatever you can do to ground yourself if you're finding yourself not coming back down to earth, because
Yes.
you can get stuck there a little bit. And the whole idea of spiritual awakening, one of the purposes is so you can live life fully more here and be
Yes.
present here and
Yes.
help people here and live this
Yeah.
life, not to escape to there, right?
No, we're gonna go there anyway. That's where we came
Exactly.
from, and we're gonna go back there. So yeah, cherish this small being, this imperfect, vulnerable, mortal
Yeah.
being now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
there's
maybe
nothing
just
better than that. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. And then maybe just you just also got to be a little careful who you talk to
Yes.
about your experiences, especially if you're younger and
Mm.
are living in a home where someone might think you're possessed or has the power
Yes.
to commit you to an insane asylum
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something like that, because people who are very asleep or just very afraid of these types of experiences can, if they have a degree of control over your life, you really have to be careful.
Yes.
Yeah, or just choose your words carefully, or I mean,
Good point. Yeah.
yeah, just you might want to express it to someone, but you just have to, either apply your filter first or just be very judicious as to who you express it to.
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah. My first day with the anger stage, I'll tell you, it wasn't pretty. I was going around telling people off, and um, it was bad. I mean, like, just not. It wasn't so much people. I wasn't telling people off. Sorry. Uh, I was I was telling I was trying to explain to people that what we believe in and the systems that are in place, because I didn't get hit by enough wisdom at that point. It was just enough wisdom to break down uh, the whole, I guess, house of cards, the illusion. And it was almost like I had this anger that I had. Like, it's like, oh, I knew about this, but everyone sold me on it, right? So sort of had this anger around it, right, in the beginning, which just, I guess, you have to release, because it's people who taught you that everything is about building up the ego or your identity, right? And nothing to do with connecting to your soul. So for me, I had all this anger toward everyone around me, because it was like, don't you see what's going on? Don't you see that, like, you're fooling yourselves, you fooled me, like. And anyway, so I wanted to express that, and I didn't do it in the most eloquent way. Let's just put it that
Right.
way, right? So anyways, again, yeah, the spiritual detox, if you don't have loving, supporting people around you, it may be it may not go down well. So that's a good point, because
Yeah.
you know I'm surprised I didn't get, like, into an actual physical fight with some people, because of just what I was saying and whatnot. But
Right.
yeah, so that's good. Anything else? Sorry, Dave. You mean
Nope,
to?
that's it.
Yeah. The other thing too, like, um, some people, I wanted to touch upon this. Some people, like, you have the what are they called again? Oh man, it's just I had it and it just slipped my mind. Um, you know the healers, the ones who use ayahuasca. What are they called again?
Yeah, shaman.
The shamans. That's it. Sorry, the shamans. Like, the whole point of ayahuasca, because some people use this. It's a psychedelic to break down the ego so that you can connect to the soul. So that's how they would use it to heal people. Um, but the point what Dave was making about don't get it, you could get addicted to the ayahuasca, right? So it's almost like don't get addicted to the spiritual experiences, right? So you want to use this to heal and to get back to living, a normal life. Just it's not normal because now you're just living with more power and more authenticity. That's it. It's nothing special. It's not like special in a way where it's supernatural, like you're able to walk on water or any of those types of things, right? It's just
Right.
more of from at least what I know, or I think that, I don't know, do you agree with that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I
Yep.
don't know if I don't want to put limits either. Maybe people can get to that state. I just don't think that's what the point is. That may be more ego driven to want to be able to, perform miracles or do that kind of stuff. It,
Yes.
it is a trap that you have to be careful you don't fall into. That's not the reason you're doing this. You're doing this so that you can live the normal human life and do it, without unnecessary, let's call it, pain and suffering.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
good.
Okay. The next thing, integration, stage 4, soulful living, the last part. Um, Yeah, the soul has obtained its captaincy and is free to express itself fully, right? So now, you've surrendered, your identity surrendered, your ego sake, okay, that's it. This part doesn't know how to, uh, uh, drive the bus, so to speak, and help me to live a purposeful life, an authentic life, and because that's the soul's job. And now you've connected to that part, and that's what you start doing. You start expressing your gifts, and that just naturally serves others because when you are living your life to the fullest. You're shining brightly. You're doing what you're passionate about, and people want to see that. Like when a true master uh, painter paints, like people love to see that, right? Uh, like our friend Amor, right? Like he started painting, and that came out of this whole COVID thing, and I thought it was amazing that I didn't even know this guy could paint, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, he's creating these like masterpieces, and it just puts a smile on my face every time I see it. Like he's expressing his soul, and to me, it's like every time I see it, I can't help but light up just for him because it's infectious, right? And
Right.
um, and then the other thing is, yeah, you are a conscious co-creator of your life. You cannot control the winds and waves, but you can adjust your sails and steer through them, right? So yeah, you can't control the weather, right? You can't control the storms, but at least you know where you're going. You're not lost, right? You're not like, oh, should I go that way? Oh, I think if I go there, that's gonna uh, that I'm going to be happy if I attain that. It's like that shiny ball syndrome or whatever, right? That the ego sees and goes, ooh, that's shiny, go after that, right? And society does a great, the marketers do a great job of doing that. Hey, you need this shiny new
Yeah.
sports car or whatever. And it's like, well, no, I mean, it's not what's going to fulfill the soul, right? It's probably doing something that's going to, serve others, right? Or just express your creativity, and then yeah. So even if you get knocked off course, you're off course, and okay, I got to turn the wheel and head back that way because the storm knocked me off or whatever, right? So even though you get knocked off, you're still on that journey and you're still happy because it's the actual journey that's making you happy, right? Because you enjoy the process, you enjoy getting there, because it's wonderful because you're following your passion, you're following your heart. Um, and then you are the last one is life is no longer a hell that you have to suffer through, but a heavenly experience you are very grateful for. Yeah, I mean it's a complete shift. Life is just amazing now because you're co-creating it, and it's yeah, I mean it doesn't get better than that when it's funny because the ego wants to control, but the way to actually get the control you're looking for is by surrendering the ego and
Yeah,
connecting to your divinity.
yeah, it's a
Right, it's like
paradox, right?
God gave us free will, and it's really like, okay, God, here we want to give it back to you, and then it's like then God gives it back. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's sort of like a back and forth. I don't know if I made that clear.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So for the healing, and it's just like healing integration kind of all starts to come together at this stage,
Mm-hmm.
and you start to come together at this stage, like you as a person, you start to become more whole and unified, whereas
Mm-hmm.
before there was lots of sort of fractured parts of yourself pulling
Yes.
yourself in one direction or the other, and so there you kind of um, yeah. So this is where you get the gift of hindsight,
Mm-hmm.
because as you're going through the process, the mind always wants to know why. You can't always see or understand why until later.
Yes.
And when you get that hindsight and you start to look back at the things, which is why we're doing this, one of the reasons we're doing these videos, right, is
Mm-hmm.
we've got that hindsight now. We can see sort of the greater picture. So you get that bigger picture perspective, which you don't have when you're stuck in your individual ego separate self, right?
Yes.
Um, so you get a deeper connection to yourself. You're integrated. You're living a lot more authentically. You're less susceptible to the influence of others or the conditioning of society. There's just numerous gifts that come out of this that are going to be different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in the end, it's just a transformation of self. Like
Yes.
that's all. Like if I had to boil it down to one thing, it's a process of transformation. Like you said, it's the butterfly coming out of the cocoon, right? And the trap here is just to get caught in another identity of self. Now that I'm a spiritual person, that's your new identity. uh, and the way I look at it now is whatever I do in life, like it's a role that I play
Yes.
for that time when it's needed, and then I play another role for another time when it's needed. But behind that all is still the true essence, which
Yeah.
which plays the roles. If
Yeah. No, absolutely.
that makes any sense, right? And
Yeah. It's like for me, I'm not. I know I don't really like to get into religion too much, but this is what the story of Jesus means to me. Quickly, like Jesus of Nazareth was his ego. It was his full ego, and he became Jesus Christ, right? Which means the mix between the two. So he still had his individual self, but at the same time, he's now driven by Christ consciousness. So it's not the ego driving. Before it was the ego devoid of the soul, for instance, right? So it was just Jesus of Nazareth, like it's pure identity, right? It's
yeah,
Jesus of the physical plane only, right? And then you have Jesus Christ, which means, his ego self, he still, an individual person, but now he achieved this Christ consciousness, and that's what's driving him. And that's where he was like, I and the Father are one, and so forth and so on. But all that meant is he connected to his divinity and became one, and now is being driven from that part. And so they're both important. The individual part is important, but yeah, it's just a temporary role. And your purpose is to make sure that you're consciously and authentically expressing that part of you to benefit yourself and others, right? Everyone. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
just that everything you went through ends up building that connection to your soul,
yeah,
right? So this is
yeah.
where we go first full circle to what we said in the beginning, right? Is now that
Hmm.
you've gone through all of that, you've gone through being completely unconscious and
Yeah,
totally unaware and totally oblivious to your denial, through your denials and your addictions and your pain and the dark night of the soul, and now you're coming back up the other way, out
yes,
the other side. You're starting to rise again. The pain and the suffering is going away. You've
yeah.
cleared it from your system, but now you're once all of that is gone, that's how you build that bridge, and that's how you keep that connection to your soul.
Yeah.
And so now at this stage, you're doing your best to keep that connection and follow that.
Hmm. Yeah. I remember when I was finally out and I came out and I realized like this limitless power and this freedom to really fly and go wherever I want and create whatever I want. I was like, oh, now what? So I'm like, oh, I really just get to do whatever I want, right? And okay, what is that? Let's really like start getting. And so that's the beauty of it. Like where I just remember having this great feeling, like, oh wow, I can do whatever I want. I can create whatever I want. And uh, what do I love the most? What do I really want to
Yeah.
uh, do that is gonna only magnify this connection? And so again, you're driven by this connection. You're driven by this um, divinity. It's just an amazing feeling, right? Because and it's like, and the more you do that, the more you choose to live in alignment with that, the better you feel. So it's just sort of like it just like I said, it's hard to describe. Compared, I could only say it as I was living in hell before, because like you touched upon, you keep doing the same things over and over and going in circles and keep ending up in the same place, with that same emptiness and void and pain and cloudiness and suffering and everything. And this is like completely opposite. Like you just feel really good, uh, and you just can easily magnify that, yeah, by continuing along that path. Yeah, so it's amazing, and because you're so in tune with it, your intuition is increased. You know right away when you do something that weakens that connection,
Yeah.
and yeah, it strengthens that connection. So when you're at this stage, it's definitely more apparent. I find. I'm sure you've experienced the same, Dave. And it's important to know that you can still revert back to old ways and make programming type decisions. But at least now you become aware of that very,
Yeah.
very quickly, because you're like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. What am I doing?
Yeah.
I better change that right away.
Yeah.
Because you don't want that. You don't want this experience to. It's like you've already been down that road. You
Exactly.
already suffered. Why would I want to go backwards? Like I want to stay here, right? Yeah. So it sort of happens even without um, uh, it just sort of happens like naturally, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You want to move on to the next one?
Yep.
All right, which I believe is the end. Yeah. So yeah, go ahead, Dave. Like these are just some closing quotes that we have here for you. And Dave, would you like to share yours first?
Yeah. So I mean, the quote is, "The way forward is inward."
Mm-hmm.
And as I said at the beginning of this, one of the biggest switches for me was I had so much of my attention focused on the external world. I wasn't paying attention to my inner world at all.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that blocks you from connecting, having a greater connection to spirit is within you. your belief systems, your emotions that are out of alignment with love, and going within um, is the way that you have to do that to be able to progress forward. Otherwise, you just stay stuck, and you're just you're just going to be repeating unconscious patterns over and over and over again. Like, you're caught in a hamster wheel and running and not really getting anywhere.
Yeah.
So if you haven't ever considered it, I would definitely recommend adopting some type of meditation or stillness practice, self-inquiry, self-observation, journaling, something to understand what your mind is thinking and what you are feeling, and clarifying that. Um, uh, because it's just integrally linked to the journey that we're on. And when you siphon through all of your beliefs that are out of alignment with love, fear-based beliefs, you just keep going deeper and deeper within. Now, when you kind of get past the healing, or past, I guess I don't want to say past, but there's the healing and integration phase, which we just talked about. Moving forward, you can actually take an active role in the process, a conscious role in your evolution and your connection. And because this is a journey from the separate self to the infinite self, or the eternal self, the journey actually never ends. It just keeps going. I mean, there's always more. You don't have to go in there and dwell there in the darkness. Obviously, that's not good either. But taking an active role in going in and within, and helping to clear more beliefs that are out of alignment, helps clear that dense energy out of your system, and just it continues to expand, and you continue to build a stronger bridge and a bigger bridge, and soul integration becomes more concrete, and it becomes more set within you, and then you live from that place a little bit more each and every day. And so if you make it a part of your lifestyle, you make it a part of your habits, where you're always just going within and just spending that time connecting with your soul and knowing what that feels like. So you can have your compass that unerringly just says, do this, do that, yes, no, like, it becomes a lot easier and a lot more simple.
Yeah.
And so the journey never ends, and you take it as far as you want to go.
Yes.
And the deeper you go within, the more what was the other saying from another one we did, the more connection, from interconnection arises interconnection.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the more connected you become with yourself within, the more you connected you become with love and all of life. And that is where this is taking you. So so always just take a moment to pause and just go within and check yourself.
Yeah.
And that's it. So there we go. And
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. No. And then just to that's a great quote. And yeah, I mean, and a good thing to remember too is that everyone's journey is different. Each one of these stages is going to be different for everyone. And just like Dave and I in our spiritual detox. I mean, like, obviously it took a long time to lead up to those 3 days. There was a lot of effort I had to put in there, but the actual spiritual detox that happened was over 3 days, where for Dave it was like 2 years. So I think that's important to understand, that this is unique. Everyone's going to be unique in how they go through all of this. So and it is important to know that we're imperfect beings, and we always have to work on ourselves. So that's a great point, Dave. Those are really great points, Dave. And awesome. Yeah. So for mine, I just wanted to leave off with this thought, and that is, the greater the pain, the higher the shackled soul will fly upon its release. And the reason I say that is because for anyone who's feeling I'm very empathetic. Like, even though I feel good today, I still remember what it felt like before, when I was depressed. and even though, again, I don't feel that way, I can still feel it. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes sense, but and so anytime someone comes to me who is depressed and they're looking for guidance or help or anything like that, like I really do feel that empathy, and the biggest thing I want them to know is like, listen, it doesn't matter how much pain you're in. um, uh, you, you can always get through this. You can always get over this. The amount of pain is not indicative of, like, like you say, oh, the more pain I have, the more of a mess it is, and I won't get through this. And it's like, well, no, I mean, the amount of pain that I was in uh, was, I said, I was suicidal. So there was no greater pain for me that I think I couldn't have experienced any more than that. And I mean inner pain, right? And so yeah, I mean, and once I did go through my spiritual detox, like I said, it was like opposite end of the spectrum. I went from complete hell to heaven, and it's almost like, if I had to use an analogy, if you had a beach ball and you were pushing it down under the water, and the further down you went, the greater the pain, the greater the force you have to use to push it down. It's like, when you finally let go, right, it's just going to skyrocket out of the water, and that ball's going to fly. So that's sort of the thing. Like, just if you are in a state where you have this pain, don't think that you're never going to be able to get out of it and that you're going to have it forever, that nothing can change, because that's not true. That's part of the illness, thinking and
Right.
believing that. Yeah. And yeah, don't believe that, because there has been a lot of other people that were in your shoes, in terms of, those types of intense emotional pains and struggles, and they have gone through it, and Dave and I are just two of many. So yeah, remember, if you do the work, there's a huge reward as well. Like, yeah, there may be fear, there may be um, uh, all these things that may be holding you back, or doubting yourself that you don't have the strength. But like Dave said, you do have that inner strength. It's there. That's part of your gift that you have for having a soul, for being a part of this experience. And yeah, once you get through the pain and get through the spiritual detox, you will fly. I'm telling you, you will fly, and that's what I wish for you, to get to that point. So that's awesome, Dave. Again, this has been another great talk, and yeah, I hope this helps a lot of people today and in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too, for sure. All right. Let's. Is that the last slide, or is that?
Yeah. Oh, the next thing is just basically, if you want to reach us,
Yeah.
it's davehurdle@rogers.com. And your website, Dave?
Awakeningenergy.net. And we just want to say, give a shout out to AL5409. Thank you very much for sticking around and watching.
Oh,
And
thank you, Alan.
we appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alan. Yeah, so that, and then for myself, it's Sal at V10Heatlth.com. And my website is www.v10health.com. And yeah, Dave and I are always around to help anyone in need. If you have any questions, there are no stupid questions. I always say that. Yeah, we will answer, as soon as possible, and that's it. Yeah, so we look forward to doing this again in the future. If you have any topics that you may be interested in Dave and I covering, feel free to leave that in the comments, and yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Take care, Sal.
Yeah, you too.
Until next time.
Until next time. Bye.